All right, so you can. Wait, how do I say your name?
Jet.
Jet. Okay, that's what I thought. Jet. So you can go ahead and introduce yourself. I'm here interviewing with Jet, and she's about to give an introduction, and we're going to be having a conversation about the spiritual science and just how you can use spirituality to empower yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. What's up, y'all? My name is Jet, and I don't like labels, but you can call me an occultist, a spiritualist, whatever, whatever. And yeah, I'm here with Malik today. I'm excited to get into some spirit science, and yeah, I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I feel like this conversation is definitely going to help a lot of people. So glad that we're having it. So just to start off, how did you get into spirituality?
In a sense, I've been into it my whole life. I was like a kid at like 7 years old in church, thinking to myself, this isn't adding up, it's not making sense. So I started questioning and rejecting the status quo at a really young age. And I always knew that I would be going on an alternate type of path. I knew that I wouldn't believe in the things that the average person believes. I just didn't know on a subconscious level, I didn't know when I wanted to fully entrench myself on that journey, because deep in the back of my mind, I knew that the type of thing that I would lean toward would require my life to match that. I can't just say, oh, this person repents for my sins, or this person will come and save me, or when I die, this or that. No, I'll have to actually be about that life right now.
Hmm.
Um, and so it took me a while, even though I always believed in things on the spiritual side, it took me a while to decide to fully dive in and go to the point, because I kind of knew it would get to the point of no return.
Hmm.
So it took me a while, but when I was about, I was into meditating and all that starting in high school. I'm now 28, but I got really serious about 5 years ago when I was like 23. And I just decided I've done it all, I've seen it all. It doesn't matter. This, like, the status quo, what comes with that, it doesn't have anything else to offer me. It's not fulfilling. I'm just going to dive deep into the rabbit hole and just be gone. So,
Hmm. I like that. When I was a kid, like before I was questioning things in church fully, I just really never really paid attention in there. Like I couldn't really grasp it. Like when people they talk about the metaphysics of the Bible and they're like saying Jonah and the whale and they're comparing it to astrology or something, I'll be lost because I'm like, I do not know these stories.
yeah.
So I think that was some sort of protection that was over me, but it still is a fight to kind of get the things that they implant, like put on you subconsciously away, because there's a lot of, I have a couple questions about that, but it's a lot of fear that you'll be going to do things and not realize it. And that's kind of where it comes from. But yeah, it was kind of like the same way. It's like, you just know that you're supposed to be doing something else and you just kind of don't know what that is yet. But what do you think are some of the common misconceptions about the spiritual journey?
Um, that it's superficial,
Mm.
because when things become very trendy and popular, people misconstrue what the initial concept was. And when it comes to the spiritual path, people gravitate toward different parts. And what gets highlighted the most in mainstream venues is just, the surface level of things, the aesthetic, the kind of clothes, the crystals, the candles and incense. And I think that people, and basic level astrology, and just everything that people can dive into on the most like simple level that requires the least work on their part.
Mm.
It's still relying on external things. And so I think that what people really get hung up on is, again, the external um, tools that can help on a spiritual path, but are not necessary to be on a spiritual path. Because something that you learn from living the experience is that everything comes from within.
Mm.
You can have all the tools in the world, but if you're not willing to do the work from the inside out, it doesn't matter what you have on or what external tools to you that you use.
Mm. I feel like that's well put. I would definitely agree. And I feel like it's crazy because people will either go on the basic level or they'll go to the extreme level where it's like they done skipped over all the small things. Like now they're doing love spells. Now they're doing all types of rituals and stuff. And it's like you rarely ever hear anybody talk about anything related to like transformation or working on yourself because it's evident that we all have these problems. You can see it in our conversations, the things that we watch or we're interested in. It's evident that we all got these problems, and it's like, why is no one ever talking about working on them? It's like, everything is just we going to the fifth dimension. There's a big shift. There's a new portal every week.
Like,
And it's like every week there's a new portal.
exactly.
And we're always going through it, but it's like nobody is changing and nobody's life is changing. I'm not hearing people tell me, oh, I was homeless one day and now I'm a millionaire. I'm not hearing none of those stories. So it's always like, I think we kind of definitely could get too caught up in the aesthetic part. And a lot of times I feel like people will miss certain messages because they're looking for like, okay, he has locks, he has a turban, and he has a crystal. So
right.
if he doesn't look like that, then he probably, maybe someone I'm not supposed to be talking to or something. And you gotta be careful with that, you know what I'm saying? Because you never know how the spirit is gonna send you a message. Could be a homeless man, could be a dude who dressed like he was on an episode of Power or something. You never know. And they could be the person who came to drop some serious jewels, but you're just waiting for that aesthetic. And as we keep going into it, because the next question is, what spiritual sciences do you use? It's like, I really want to have people understand, like, the crystal is cool to wear, but it is a fashion thing, but it's also like, I feel like you should be wearing it with intention. Like I have to go do public speaking today and I'm a little nervous. Like, let me grab a certain crystal. I don't know if people are kind of putting that, like implementing that yet. And that's probably like, a big thing. So what spiritual sciences do you use?
So I use a lot of different tools and things like that. I have on crystals right now. It's like an ancient fossil. I have on some type of turquoise earrings, jade, copper. But I do that with intention, as you said, and with awareness. It's also a great reminder. So it's very important to remind yourself of the magic that exists beyond this physical realm and beyond what you're taught on a mainstream level. To touch on something that you just said, with people kind of falling for aesthetics, and they're just falling into their same mental programming, right? But the religion does, and it says, someone who's sanctified dresses a certain way. Someone who's sanctified, it gives you this idea that there's someone who comes across in a specific way, and that you have to get your wisdom all from people who are ordained, which really is just meaning indoctrinated. And this is not the case. So really, for me on my path, what I've done is centered myself, So I gravitate toward what I feel resonates with. And then I see what wisdom that has to offer me. So I started to experiment with crystals, right? And I didn't want to look into like, oh, there's crystal grids, like there's specific ways that you can lay out the crystals to get this and that effect. How I approach things is, how did somebody figure out about crystal grids in the first place? Somebody had to experiment and come up with that science. So I'm that scientist, I'm my own guinea. And then I say, oh, all this shit that I'm doing that I felt like I should try, oh, it worked. I have it down to a science now. I can share this with other people. So like when I first started doing working with crystals, not just having crystals, because I collected rocks and stones since I was a little girl, didn't know the meaning of it or anything like that, but I really just wanted to collect rocks and stones. And so I did. But when I really started integrating it into ritual, what I did was I would choose an energy center just intuitively that I wanted to focus on. And then I would pick a crystal that correlates with that energy center, and I would work with that. So this is one way that I did it. Meditating, laying down, placing that crystal on the physical area of that energy center, and just focusing on that every day consistently, and then creating a ritual around that energy center. So getting a candle that resonates with the frequency of that energy. So let's say you're doing the solar plexus and you're doing a citron and you're getting yellow candles. You're focused on the vibe, because it's not about the physical aspect of it, that you're working with a candle, you're working with the crystal, you're working with cloth of different colors or music of different frequencies. It's about the vibration that color carries, and that's what you're working with. And I think that's where people kind of misconstrue things a little bit. And so that's one good way to really like work on targeting different energy centers and getting back to homeostasis, because we're not born with blockage in our third eyes. We're not born with our chakras closed, even though really it's about the speed at which the chakra is rotating. But it's about undoing a lot of the trauma, the socialization, the programming, and everything that our ego was designed to create a shield in order to protect us from, so that we can survive with all that trauma, socialization, indoctrination. So once you decide that you want to thrive in life, you have to unprogram all of that and then go back to who you are at your core. So the change and the transformation is not about becoming a different person. It's about becoming who you truly are. And that's something that you likely don't even have much memory of, because you were so young the last time that you were truly unencumbered by something outside of yourself. So that's one thing that I do. You could ask me about, like, if you want any specifics, I can, go into that. It's a lot. So
I mean, I like first I got a little inspired off of that. Like I felt like you were spitting bars just now, you know what I'm saying? So I mean, if you have maybe we could even come back to it too, but if you want to give more like insight on any other sciences that you may use, that's like, because right now the big thing I've gotten into recently is I was already using crystals and stuff, and similar type of thing. It's like you just go up to it. First, I'll buy the crystal, I learned about it, I got books on it, whatever, and then you just start going up to it like, okay, I'm just gonna get this red and this green one. Even if I forgot which name it is, whatever, you just start intuitively, just start without thinking about it. Because if I start thinking, oh no, this is a red jaspers do XYZ, I may not, no, it's just like, just start picking it up and start doing things with it, And I feel like it's really important that people start doing that, because as much as we complain about how bad the world is, what they are doing, and there's about to be this happening and that happening, it's like we don't realize is that if this is the video game, there's like little booster packs and things like that. That's how I kind of look at it all around us, that we could be picking up and using. It's like we're not, we kind of playing with it. And when we start, if more people realize is like, you start using this stuff in your daily practices, and like you said, get it down to a science, like what might work for you may not work for me, and vice versa. And what might work for you might work for me, because we just got to do them experiments and see what happens. But you start using it, and some of these things that you're complaining about will really start to improve in your life, just having to put that work in. But yeah, I definitely think we'll come back to that.
yeah. You made a couple of things come to mind, but
Oh
you
no,
know,
what happened? Yeah.
oh no, good
Uh,
thing.
Oh no, I was
Just
gonna say, yeah. What did you want to say? You could go ahead
yeah,
before. Yeah.
so just kind of looping back around to that, when I first started doing my experiments with the crystals and things like that, at that time I was just sharing with my mom what I was doing, because the people I was surrounded by at the time were nowhere near interested in the type of things that I was doing, and I already knew that. And I didn't have a following, so I was just like sharing with my mom, and she did what I did. And mind you, when I first did this, all my technology started malfunctioning. My phone broke, my speaker broke. The crystals can become, you and the crystals, anything that you use can become so powerful in tandem with each other, because it's like a convergence of your energies and the way that amps up your electricity. But anyway, so my mom was doing this, and the same exact thing happened to her. Speaker broke, her phone broke, you know. But anyway, so um that was interesting for me. And I think that anybody who's first starting to embark on this type of path and do different experiments and things like that, they'll definitely get confirmations that will let them know that what they're doing is a real thing, and that they should continue along that path. You don't look for confirmations. The confirmations will be all in your face. Whether that be coming through numbers, experiences, synchronicities, the magic will make itself known to you once you make it known to the magic that you believe in its existence.
Mm.
But some other, little daily rituals that I do are, that people are used to praying over their food. I call it more so giving thanks, but programming my food as well. Everything is carrying an energy. Regardless of what current state it's in. It's just on a different part of its evolutionary trajectory. So I think it's very important to be mindful of the energy of everything that you consume. So whether it be some water, something to drink, some food, that should be programmed with intention before you do it. That's also a good time to do your prayers or your and the reason why I really don't like the term pray is because for a few reasons it kind of
Put it
push,
outside of you.
yeah, and it also pushes people back into that like religious mind state of needing to beg for something,
Mm.
when really you are the abundance. So once you realize that you already have everything, it shows up in your reality, but you have to give thanks for it in order for it to be in existence.
Mm.
So that's a good time to do your, but also the etymology of the word pray. It's not it's not a good look. So, but just for the sake of the concept, that is also, I believe, one of the best times to consider anybody that's in your life or the world or whoever you'd like to pray for, and whatever you would like to give thanks for in advance as well. But the way to do that is by giving gratitude in advance, instead of saying, I want my uncle to not deal with this health issue anymore. Please God, this or that. No, it's thank you for this being healed. Thank you for this much money in my bank account. Thank you for, so that's really the right way to pray. But anyway, so then another little ritual that I do to keep my circadian rhythm in balance, which helps us to align ourselves and our lives with cosmic time, is first thing in the morning before I check my phone or anything like that, I go outside and I look at the sun, and I give thanks there. And so that is allowing your body to uh, trigger its natural processes, to release the serotonin hormone, to get the vitamin D, and different processes that we need to be optimal as humans that we're getting further and further away from as we live lives more and more indoors. Yeah.
No, that's great. But like the key for anyone who's listening is like pay attention to how she talked about how that benefits her everyday life. You know what I'm saying? She's not just doing this for fun, doing this to make content. You know, this is something that's directly benefiting her life, just take that in mind. And I even got inspiration from what she was saying, so I hope you're listening to be like, oh, I got to get on it. You know what I'm saying? I got to stop playing around with this stuff, because ideally, like she said, scientist is the right word. You want to come up with your own way of doing things, and well, we're definitely going to come back. I'll have a couple questions on that, because I really liked everything you were saying, because my next one was, how does the using the spiritual sciences benefit your life in any way? But you were already kind of going into that, so I'll
And I
shift
can
it. Huh?
touch on,
Wait.
still touch on that.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, uh, what you were just saying made me want to say something, which was just that um, doing all of this work, it made, and mind you, this is the tip of the iceberg of the work. This is almost like maintenance, but when we talk about shadow work and everything like that, that's where real change and transformation happens on a mental level, that you can translate spiritually and physically. But all of these things that I do and that I talk about, that I practice, they 100% change me and my life. And as I said earlier, it's not about changing who you are at your core, but it's about getting back to who you truly are at your core. And for me, I never had consistent happiness. Mind you, I may have looked happy, been goofy and silly and popular and social and XYZ, but on the inside, I never truly had sustainable happiness and mental and emotional stability until I said, fuck it, I'm going all the way in. This for me, this all really is about being able to change your life. If you're not trying to change your life, then you go to church.
Those were big bars right there, because I definitely felt that. You know, as much as I talk to people sometimes against my will, since a kid, people always telling me their deepest, darkest like mental health problems, and I kind of just realized one day, maybe that's probably what I'm here to do. And their spirit just senses my spirit, and without me even knowing, they just telling me. But that's been a battle my whole entire life. And the constant realization that, like, we've normalized so many things. So a lot of times you can't really realize what you're battling because you don't know that it's something that's wrong. You know what I'm saying? So that I feel exact the same way. It wasn't until I started, and I always tell people it's not overnight. It's a constant battle. You might have something that comes up. You might be good, because I've been times that's good, great, or you think you're great, but then there's a new battle. It's like there's a new boss. You know what I'm saying? That could beat your ass and have you right back at the bottom again. You gotta pull yourself back up. So definitely relate to everything she just said. Like, that's key. If you are still like dealing with stuff, but you're using all of this stuff, you kind of skipping out on the transformation part, and I always tell people, like, the way to look at it is that these things affect you. So if you might as well work on them so they affect you in a good way. You know what I'm saying? You transmuting that energy instead of it holding you back, or instead of it stealing some of your power. So, you don't have confidence, you don't have will, you don't have drive to do stuff because you haven't worked on those areas yet. So you might as well work on it, because it's still affecting you either way. It's just up to you whether it's going to be positive and negative. um what's your thoughts on genealogy?
Genealogy is very important. I think everyone should be doing their genealogy, especially people like you and I. This is having other people be able to tell you that you don't know who you are is so demoralizing, is so wrong and so backwards. And in truth, nobody really in terms of large groups of people, collectives, really knows the truth of how history went down
mm,
and who everyone is today and who they were in the past.
mm.
People are lost on that. People, even a lot of people who think they know, they don't know. They think that we're displaced people because of different historical events and things like that, and they don't know all of the upheaval that's been in their own history. Everything in this dimension is in reverse. Okay, so you can pretty much guarantee that how things really started are very opposite to how things look today.
Mm.
Um, all I'm saying is don't believe what you're taught. Go out and learn for yourself. And the best way to start with that is to dig up your own family's records, ask your own elders that are still alive for information, which can be tough because there's a lot of taboos, and that's for a lot of reasons. But I think that it's important. It's important to know your bloodlines and to be empowered and not allow anyone outside yourself to tell you who you are.
No, that was fire right there. um when it comes to genealogy, I remember in the beginning of my journey, I was so like RGB, because that's how you program to be, you
Me
know,
too.
programmed to be on Malcolm, you programmed to be, and I'm Jamaican, so you programmed to be on Marcus Garvey, all this like go back to Africa. Like at one point, because with whole manifestation and stuff, I was looking at places in Ghana, and
Aren't we
they talk
all?
about the go back to with we could help our cousins overseas, and we got programs we got to come back over here and all of that. And so, and this is what I'll talk about with the spirit or whatever, with the energy. One day it was just like just Google your last name, and I just couldn't, I couldn't like stop. It was like just Google your last name in Jamaica. And when I did, I found out that my family used to own like 2 towns. And I'm like, my whole life people have been telling me this last name is a slave name,
Exactly.
but this is actually an indigenous name. Like this is the name. Like my dad would always be like, man, when I would be like messing up, he'd be like, man, you disgracing the family. Like I'll be like, what you mean? Like this is like, we got this slave name. Like what do you mean we disgracing the family? The whole time we're like, we're the indigenous people. And we're not just the indigenous people, we have a whole town. And I always say, like, don't listen to what I'm saying like I'm special. Like a lot of people have this same story. We don't realize it because our last names have changed many times, because they burned our records, because they just don't teach you this in school. You know what I'm saying? They tell you you're from somewhere else. And, they also use a lot of like clever truths. I feel like they don't always lie to us. They're working on technicalities, the fact that one word means like 10 different things and stuff like that. So, and a lot of times I feel like we as people of the Americans have a hard time like with who we are. And that's why there's so many people who's always like fighting back against, I guess, Africans and stuff online now, because our whole life people have been like looking at the way that we do things naturally. Like we just naturally tie stuff around our head. We just naturally wear our jewelry in a certain way and just do things and talk and move a certain way naturally. And people have been like telling us, you guys are ghetto, or you guys are thugs, or you're ratchet or whatever. And it's like, these are the things that just come to us naturally. And they want us to be something outside of ourselves. But because we've never been in touch with our true story, when I start to see these images and I'm like, wow, they just look like us. I see pictures of people who look like you, who look like me. It's just the people I was growing up with. And this is like for the first time. And they're just all over Pinterest. And these are like paintings that people have in their house, like rich people, like paintings of us in past lives and stuff.
Don't realize that 1%, the average white person doesn't know, and that's why they're more likely to be ignorant and
Right.
racist. But the elite ones, and then the ones who are just smart or spiritual or something like that, they know what's up. I promise you, they be having
Right.
shoes of our ancestors. Like I've seen houses in like these extremely expensive white areas, and I'm like, why y'all have my ancestors' artifacts?
Right.
Like
Right.
they're siphoning that energy and they're honoring that. And we don't even know ourselves. Like, there's a reason why the vast majority of us were told that we were Indian as children. Like,
Right.
we were told that. Like, my grandma said that you had to go to school or see some shit online to know anything else, to be told that, oh no, that's not actually true. But if the majority of, melanated, pinky haired, Americans, Caribbeans, et cetera, trace back their genealogy, they're going to have a much more challenging time. And I'm not saying this doesn't exist and that it can't be mixed in there, but they're going to have a much more challenging time finding an African ancestor than they will finding a European or indigenous ancestor. Because
Right.
the truth is, we are indigenous all over the world. Even mainstream
Right.
science already released it. They released Cheddar Man, the original British man, and that dark skinned curly hair person. And do you think that they want to tell us this if that's just not literally what it is? No, they do not.
Right.
They
Because
don't want to.
that changes your whole story right there.
Okay. And it's a reason. That's why I can't wait for our people to stop trying to be the appropriation police all the time, because I understand it. It does get annoying because they don't have to deal with certain things that we may have had to deal with in our lives, but they can just push it on like a costume or whatever. And they might not even fuck with us as people. But at the end of the day, when you're mommy and daddy of the whole entire world, people will copy everything you do, whether they're aware of the fact that you're mommy and daddy or not. They are going to naturally be programmed to emulate what you do. So you have to start seeing that for what it is so that it doesn't get under your skin, because it's about feeling good to live good.
I like what you just said there, because I don't think, because love and hate is really like the same thing. People say it's always like a thin line. So even if they hate us, it's really like, I look at it like a jealousy thing. Like it's like secret worship. And I don't think people realize, because our mind is so tied to slave events that most times have never even happened. That's one thing I always be saying to people. And two, it's like, if it did happen, it didn't happen the same way everywhere. Your family might really have been on a plantation and they could still be indigenous, but they experience is not going to be the same as someone in Jamaica or Haiti or Alabama or Georgia, or from one town to the next town.
House to house,
Right.
and
Like, back in because we're under this thing. Oh, wait, I don't know if you're talking.
oh, I'm done.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, because we're under the thing called the United States, everyone thinks that we were all living under one united front or something. But yeah, I forgot what I was going to say.
But no, I get what you're saying. Like, they think that everything was the same, but
Yeah.
in reality, that's not the case. And not only that, but we're literally taught like one same story about how that time period went. Like, all the stories that they tell us, they're the same story, very depraved. They were ruled by extremely evil people. They had them under their foot. They were always up under white people.
Right.
There are so many
Right.
stories and so much variation. Everything is not 12 years a slave and Django. That was not the most common type of scenario at all. We don't talk about how we enslaved some white people enslaved other white people, indigenous enslaved indigenous. It gets a lot deeper. And that's why I always say, if you really know real history, the state of the world, and how energy just works in agreements, the state of the world is everybody's fault. It really is.
Mm. I feel like that too. I feel like me and my male friends be talking. We're like, damn, sometimes as a dude, if you're single, to go out in the world, like especially now, if you're not a creep, it's a little hard, because women are kind of traumatized. And
Yeah.
I feel like just a lot of things in general, even sometimes with growing up in the hood and seeing so many people in jail and all of that, I feel like we're paying for the sins of whatever we was doing when things was splendid. We could have been wilding out. You know what I'm saying? Everyone always talks about being a king or whatever, and things being good and having 5 wives and all this, and it just highlights, but it's like we never get the low light reel of what the negative effect of that, because it sounds like we was the ones who was messing everything up. And these people just kind of came in, was like, oh, they the coast is clear. You know what I'm saying?
That we were very, very the powerful people on earth at some point in time. Then how did we get to this place?
Wait, hold on. Wait, hold on 1 second. It's about to hit the 40-minute mark, but I'm just going to start another meeting.
Okay.
Okay, we'll just start from right there. Hold on. I'm going to end it and start another meeting.
All right.
Okay, I do not want to miss out on what you were saying just now, if you remember.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we're talking about people, how the world has changed in terms
Yeah,
of
our you were saying that we were these like great people. So like what happened? How did we
yeah. So if you were the people who had the power in your hand, then how can you not take responsibility from what birthed out of that? One of the major problems with why the world is how it is and why it's taking our community a long time to get out of the position that they've been in for a minute now. I mean, all what comes up must come down, right? But it's because we are spiritually immature. We're like children. We don't accept responsibility for anything. And everyone, and this goes for women too, this goes for men, this goes for everybody, every group that thinks they're oppressed and everything. We all need to take responsibility for the state of the world, because just how the melanated were first, women also set the precedent. So you have to be careful what you do when power is in your hands at the end of the day. And we can't have more of a say in where the world is at currently and what the future will look like until we take responsibility for where things are at today. And everybody needs to do this, because it couldn't have been this way without all of our participation and agreements. So
I think that's well put. That's the spiritual immaturity part. That's a big thing. And the taking responsibility, because don't get me wrong, anybody listening, like it's a programming to just be like, especially if you come from the RGB, it's a programming to just be like the white man, the white man, the white man. You become you from the boondocks.
again, it's religious. But
Yeah.
and I did it too, trust me. Like I went to Howard and I was like a leader and like, let's go and like fuck some shit up because we're pissed. Like all these verdicts are coming in and
Right.
that energy has to go somewhere. But at the end of the day, where has all this activism gotten us? Oh, we get to watch us get killed on TV now. Wonderful.
Right.
Like
Right.
congratulations. Now we can watch it and become more desensitized and have everybody watch it and be a big energy harvesting ritual. But it's religious programming again. People don't realize how deep and on how many levels their programming goes to, because again, we're externalizing for someone else to save us by saying the white man, the white man, the white man. Then the only way your problems can get resolved and you can be free is if the white man frees you. That's very disempowering. You will never be able to lift yourself up doing that.
That was a bar. Yeah. Yo, y'all gotta, I hope anybody watching this is paying attention, because that is a fact. Like, and then as you start to do genealogy, I get like anybody who's watching this, as you start to do genealogy, your perspective on whatever you think of yourself, your family, and just your community is going to start to change, because you're going to start looking at the reality the way that it is instead of the way that it's been told to you. You know what I'm saying? And it's small things, And aside from your genealogy, I also suggest you get with some old people and just listen to them talk about what their life was like growing up. You will be surprised. You talking to a man who was supposed to be like our age. They're in the 60s and stuff. And he's just talking about how good life was. He's like, Black people own Cadillacs, Black people own this, Black people own the gas station. Black is like, we know what happened, drugs, war on drugs, all of that. But a lot of people don't know about that. They just think there and then your uncle was getting hosed, your grandma was getting beat up or something. And some people was living very well. Some people never stopped living well. I had to realize that too. I was like, man, we always be talking about this struggle. I feel like I was struggling. A
Yeah,
lot of people
yeah.
had it great. You know what I'm saying? I got cousins that live in $500,000 plus houses and stuff. It's like, but I never really realized that. And because in my mind, I'm just like, black people poor, struggling. You don't even if they're driving a nice car, you never even realize it. Like that's how strong the programming could be, So that's definitely big. This is definitely an important conversation. The next thing kind of ties into this. How has genealogy personally empowered you?
For me, I detached from the whole like RBG martyr complex through my spiritual journey, right? I decided that didn't make sense to utilize my energy in that way, that you're actually sacrificing yourself when you do that.
Mm.
Um, and when I did my genealogy, I saw that a lot of what people are fighting for today, um, it's not something that's meant to be fought for in the way that it is, and that a lot of what they think they're fighting against, uh, it some of it requires their participation. It requires them to fight to keep it going, or else it wouldn't be as interesting to harvest the energy the way that it is. But you just get all of those illusions dispelled, like you were just saying. I have several bloodlines that have been big in land ownership going back hundreds of years. Do we own land now? Not really, but but at the end of the day, what I see is like, I don't come from deprivation. Like, my ancestors weren't living pure struggle. My ancestors, some of them were a part of the institutions that oppressed others.
Mm.
Some benefited from that, and that would have, oh my God, that would have shattered my whole everything and broken my heart to a million pieces 10 years ago to find that
Mm.
out. So I guess the information comes, you get it when you're ready for it,
Fact.
but it just confirmed to me how much of this reality is a myth. But if we all agree on something as history, then and that will predicate our reality. So the
Yep.
more
Yeah.
people
That's
are,
exactly. Yep.
you know, so yeah, now we are oppressed. We are seen as on the bottom. And a lot of people do treat us like we're on the bottom because now they're trained to see things that way, you know. But that's not what things are though. That's just not what it is. And I go even deeper than that, but I don't want to isolate certain populations of people. But we created all of this, and we created all of them, and so now we kind of just have to take responsibility for all of our creations, and know that we're always a part of the creative process. What we're experiencing currently, we were a part of making that reality. It's not true that anyone is 100% just a victim to reality.
Right. Because once you become, I like to say, we got to become indigenous people again. And people think of indigenous as like face paint, feathers in your head, and stuff like that. Yes, that's a part of it. Those are symbols, but being an indigenous person just in general, because once you start to do that, like I had to think about it. I'm like, if my family is the Maroons that they're talking about, then like when George was down there negotiating Jamaica, they was a part of it. Like they
Yeah.
was sitting at the round table, you know what I'm saying? And that's very different from like we beat the shit out of you and you got chased y'all into the mountains and whatever it might be, y'all some runaway slaves. Like you start to realize like a lot of this doesn't even make sense. You say it out loud. People come over here with guns that take 20 minutes to load, or going over there, I should say, with guns that take 20 minutes to load and conquering African kingdoms and dynasties that were still going on at the time and just beating their ass and taking their people, or we were sold by our own people. Like all these stories, when you start to break it down, it's like it really don't make no sense, because how's the minority selling the majority and vice versa? So it's like, what, it wasn't until I started doing genealogy I really started being able to connect with the story more. And then I started to realize, like, you know, they you can even look at maps, even today's maps. You know, people always want to go way back in time. Like, you even look at today's maps, like they haven't even changed much. You know what I'm saying? We just keep adding little fake stuff like the imaginary lines in between the states and stuff like that. But they still haven't even changed much. You can look at the map of Jamaica and see it was obviously named by people who were into something Moorish, because everything is Bay. So they might have changed the letter E to A or something, but they didn't even, like, you know, they didn't even go too hard, because it's like they just taught us that you're just not from here, or everything, all of this is white, or all of this is Spanish, so that means that it's white, or all of this is indigenous, so it means that it's some Asian looking person. So they just keep putting us outside of ourselves, you know. So we just, it's hard to reconnect. I feel like that's why it's hard for people to tap in and hard for people to trust themselves, because from birth you've been just looking elsewhere. You looking in the sky for your help. You look into other continents from where you from, when your whole family's from Georgia, but you look into some other continent to go find some family. It's like, what more family do you need? They all down south, you know. It's like, so I don't know. I feel like that's important, man. That's an important part of the journey. That's going to break a lot of spells, because you can't be an indigenous person and kind of have a religious mind at the same time, because indigenous people are in religion.
So
So, yeah, what were you saying?
I didn't want to cut you off.
Oh no, go ahead.
But as you can see, this has been a large part of our demise,
Mm,
being manipulated to detach from our original spiritual practices.
right.
The fact that we did join these religions pretty early on when these folks came over here. And when they started trying to impose their presence on us, we did, and I'm not saying that people weren't held at gunpoint or anything like that, that they didn't do what they needed to do just to survive. But why are your grandkids still into the religion? Why are your great grandkids still into it? Your great 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 grandkids into it? You know what I'm saying? I understand if somebody in 1650 was threatened for their life, if you either get in line and start going to church and say that you're a Christian and take this name, or we kill you. I understand that. But why do we keep following this shit hundreds of years later?
Right.
That's no
That's
sense.
spelling strong.
And you don't want to be oppressed, you don't want to be a victim.
Mm,
How else do you have religion? You're agreeing to be in a mindset of victimhood.
mm. No, that's bars right there. And that spell is strong. Like, I always tell people to gain an idea visually in your mind. Like, you got to watch shows like Charmed and stuff like that to just see what someone under a spell looks like. Cause it's like, that's us, you know, and it's definitely strong. And I don't know. It's hard to say the full story of how they was able to just cast it on us so strongly, because, you know, but it's like, especially in like the Caribbean, it's so engulfed in people's life, even in their verbiage. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
the
Even in
same.
the slang.
That's the
Huh?
same down south. That's the
Yeah.
same but in all of our ancestors, regardless, like I'm in LA, but like I only have to go back to my parents and my grandparents for us all to be mostly from the South. But I really can break down exactly how it was done and all that type of stuff, but it's way, it's deep. I have made an episode about some of the properties of melanin and darkness and what that entails and the effects that that has on a person. And a part of my hope was for people to listen to that and be able to understand why our people fall into certain spells a lot more easily and get attached to them.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, there's a lot of spirit science behind that. I know that these people have done a lot of psychology on us, but there's a reason why we're even the perfect subjects to do psychology on. But the moment we fully understand the science, again, when we get back to remembering and we hold fast in that, we practice that, we live that, they won't be able to control and manipulate and put us in fourth dimensional prisons like we're in right now. And well, I say they won't have us voluntarily walking into fourth dimensional prisons, because no one can put you somewhere without your own permission.
Right. They're just whispering in our ear and kind of just making us walk into the wall over and over. That's kind of how I look at it.
We're
And
never stepping back and saying, why do I keep walking into this wall? You know, because
right,
that spell, it's through awareness.
right. One thing I will say to anybody watching is the more you get into the rabbit hole of these type of subjects, is the people look more and more like you. And that might be hard, like a hard concept to grasp, but like she started off earlier, you know, you have to reverse all of this. You know, the people who put religion in your family were people who married into your family. They didn't, we weren't, it wasn't even like it was always a beating and force type of thing. It's like you marry into the family, you adopt their customs, or we were conquered, you know. So if you conquer somebody, it's like you got to watch to understand history and stuff, because I think people think this life thing is like a G-rated movie. And it really, and it really, like the way things is going on, the way they be doing
Not
things,
fair. You're
how
not the child.
sinister it is. Or what are you saying? Yeah.
No, because people be like, it's not fair. It's not fair. You know,
Right.
it's like
Yeah, like the way that they're doing things, like we dealing with like one of these drug dealing movies or something, mixed with like Charmed. That's how I look at it. And they're constantly casting spells and stuff on us. And we need to wake up to that, because we're like in a fight with we're playing a video game in a fight, and our controller is just down and we're just watching. And the character is just getting his ass whooped. And it's like, yo, pick up the controller, you know, fight back, do something. It's like that's kind of where we're at with it. So that's just something I want y'all to keep in mind. You know, don't be shocked by this. But I mean,
I know it can be a shock to the system,
right.
but I think it's a great lesson in how things really work energetically and how things work, just how things really work on Earth. The concept of polarity and duality, you know, do your genealogy, and a large number of you are going to find the conqueror and the conquered inside your genealogy, your one genealogy. You know, shit gets deep, shit is complex and dynamic, you know. Um, and at the same time, you can't let that make you want to disassociate from the truth. You have to use everything to empower you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the key word. It's an empowerment thing. Because for me, it was almost like overnight. It was like, oh wow. And then another thing is I had to stop. I had to stop complaining. Once I started doing GI, I'm hearing like, oh no, your grandfather was a businessman. Or one of my grandfathers was Chinese, one of the first Chinese people in Jamaica, opened up shops and stuff. It's like when you start hearing that stuff, it's like, well, shit, I can't be walking around here with this victim mentality, because it's like I really am coming from successful people. So now I got to live up to that. Now you become like a prince or a princess, where it's like, damn, it's like at some point I got to live up to that crown or something, because everyone has these stories. You know what I'm saying? Just because you've been disconnected, just because you might be from quote unquote the hood or whatever, even places we call the hood, this is not really the hood. It's like bombs have been dropped on it, you know, but because it's not a physical bomb like Hiroshima, we can't see it. They're bombs in other forms, you know what I'm saying? These used to be the where the 1% lived, and we was that 1%. You know, Harlem, or even locally where I live in Connecticut, Hartford, you know, the places like in Philly and stuff, these were the places where all this stuff that we talk about now was going on. And it might look crazy now, but it wasn't always like that before gentrification and stuff like that. This is where the 1% was living. It was people who look just like us. So we got to get out of that victim stuff.
A lot of people that come out to LA for the first time, they're always like, y'all hoods are so beautiful. And it's like people don't know the history of these areas. People don't know that there's mansions in Compton, because it used to be a lot of cowboys that look like us with ranches and mansions,
Mm.
and that's what it was. Same thing with South LA. You know, I'm from um I'm from one block off Slauson, between La Brea and Crenshaw, and that area is
Oh,
like
that's interesting. I
people
got a Nipsey hat on.
the history. Oh, you do? Okay, shout out to Nipsey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my guy. But the fact that he actually he did what we're supposed to do, what people from these areas are supposed to do. Get your money and bring it back to the community and build something up. Um, so I respect that. But yeah, people don't know the history of these areas. They don't know even LA. This city was created by indigenous people, like, and people who look like us. I'm not even just talking about people who the mainstream thinks of as indigenous today,
Right.
and people don't know that. Who some of these streets are named after, Pio Pico and different things. But it gets deep, and you would have to start to question if you really are the perpetual biggest victim in society throughout all history.
Right. Because I even had to question, like, when living in the hood and stuff, like, was I really as poor as I thought I was? Or was it our minds just warped? Did we just start buying the wrong foods? Did we just start doing what we seeing on TV? Like, because if you listen to your parents, and people from the South and stuff can relate, because Caribbean life and Southern life is very similar. If you listen to your parents talk about how they grew up poor, you gotta understand that people paid thousands of dollars to get the lifestyle that your parents used to have for like a week in Jamaica or in Haiti, or even down south. You know what I'm saying? People travel all over the world to go to places like Atlanta and stuff, to walk around barefoot, to take cold showers, to live how indigenous people are supposed to live. Yeah, they only ate once a day because that was life. You know what I'm saying? You only eat to live. We are under these new systems. Sometimes we look at their life like, oh, they didn't have Jordans, they didn't have Ferraris, and we don't see the splendor of stuff that they did have. But it's like, even if the land was cheap back then, do you know how valuable it is to have land, period, anywhere?
Yes, the land was cheap, but if we're looking at it from our perspective, a modern perspective, everything was cheap. Their paycheck was cheap. So it's not
Right,
about it being cheap. It was a lot of money at the time,
right.
you know. And however it was acquired, whether it was acquired through a land grant, whether it was acquired through, a treaty or whatever, land has great value. It's funny because in the hood, at least out here, you always see a lot of luxury cars, you see a lot of designer clothes. But everybody is, most people are in apartments. And it's just interesting because we prioritize what we're told has value instead of
Mm,
what actually just has value.
right. Cause I'm like, yo, we the one with the, like, if I think of someone in designer clothes, I'm either gonna think of like those highbrow, like, people in New York, regardless of their race or background, or like I'm thinking of a person in the hood, or like a black person. If I'm thinking of somebody with a Louis Vuitton bag or something, I'm thinking of a black person. Like, when I think of luxury, I don't know if I'm just programmed that way, but I
That's
think
true.
of us, and I'm
We're
like,
the
yep. Oh wait, what were you about to say?
we're the biggest consumers. It's true. It's not just your mind.
Exactly. Right. And they always say these things like, we spend the most money and stuff like that. And when you say a lot of this stuff out loud, it's like, all right, how are we the brokest, but we spend the most money? Are we just magically making it appear? Like, do we only have $500 in our account, but we somehow spending 1,000? Like, what are we doing here? And when they keep telling us this stuff, we keep putting it in our mind. And the reason why you have to get over it is because you could be limiting yourself. You could be limiting your view. Like, oh, all I just want to do is get an apartment. All I just want to do is get like a little house. I'll be so grateful. You don't know how good life could be for you. And that's going to be one of the things I go into, how like sometimes spiritual people, not to say you should be materialistic, but they kind of forget, like, yeah, we on earth and stuff right here now. If you plan on having a family and stuff, why wouldn't you want to try to have a ranch or something? You know, it's possible. It's more than possible. There's a lot of people doing it. And depending on where you're trying to buy it, it might not even be that expensive. You know, we spend the money on less, on liquor and stuff and turning up and partying. So the money is there, the opportunity is there. And especially if you're talking about being a community for real, like you could get to people don't think outside the box. You could get some people together and buy like, you know, a big mansion or something. You know, if y'all willing to really live together, it don't just got to be like on them fake reality shows. You could really do stuff like that right now. You know, like that RDC crew. Them, I don't know if you watch them on YouTube, like the comedians. They make like funny videos, but they bought a big house in Texas and they all living in their roommates, you know, but it's like a mansion, something you see on MTV Cribs. And they just pool their resources together to make it work. You know, there's things that you could be doing right now. Like, you know, we don't have to just fantasize about them, man. But
Absolutely. On that note, you know, I think about that type of thing, but unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, I have a certain type of life path as a number 33, but people around me don't necessarily have that same type of vision. So, but you know, people complain about having to work so much and the matrix and everything. Well, if you guys bought together a mansion somewhere, like for example, how you just said in Texas, that rent on that mansion might be $3,000, and they might have, you know, however many people in that house, where the amount that they have to pay for overhead is so minimal that those people have just freed themselves to make their life centered around what they really want to create, whether that's making money for them right now or not, you know. And there's freedom in that. So we do have to think outside of the box and think of new ways to not get our sovereignty, because we're already sovereign beings, but to live as such.
right, right. Um, to flip the conversation again, why do you think it's so hard for people to lead themselves?
It's just the programming, you
Hmm.
know. So, there's a reason why all of these religions are as heavily propagated as they are. It keeps the system going, and it keeps people who see themselves as victims to the system. It keeps them operating the system for them. Uh, so it's just that external savior complex. Once people have it ingrained in their minds that some place or some time is going to save them, it's hard to get those programs out of the mind without having the conscious awareness that they exist. And I see this even existing in the spiritual community as well. You have a lot of people waiting on like a particular spaceship or a race of aliens. You know, I'm
Yeah,
like, y'all are still on the point. Y'all are still in your ego, you know, thinking that whatever you need to fix isn't something you need to fix yourself. It's not that, it's something outside of you that's going to be the solution. And even though that's disempowered, it's actually very egotistical and it's
mm,
immature. So it goes back to accountability. Also, you know, it's much easier to say, well, when so and so comes back, then the world is going to get it together, humans can get it together, or this and
right.
that. It's so much easier to deflect blame, whether it be on the government, whether it be on politicians or celebrities or religious figures. It's a lot easier to project responsibility onto others than it is to hold yourself accountable for your own life.
Mm. Yo, she's dropping bars. I hope y'all is picking this up, taking notes, because that is exactly right. Those are some of the same things I talk about. You're gonna be waiting to go to the fifth dimension. You're gonna be waiting for the aliens to come back. You're gonna be waiting and just waiting. And it's like, damn, I was 25 when I started waiting, and I'm 32. And ain't nobody come, ain't nothing happen. You know, I'm still waiting for all the food to disappear. You know, I'm still waiting for this. I'm waiting for that. Sometimes I've talked about, it's like, it'd be tripping me out when I watch an old lecture and it's like from 1998.
They be talking about the same
They
shit.
talk about the same shit.
one of the reasons why, like, I respect Bobby and all of them. I respect, I respect spiritual predecessors and everything like that. But I still hear when I listen, and I don't listen to any of these people regularly. I maybe listen to two people because I know the truth. So I like feel a lot of cap when a lot of people speak, and so I can't consume it.
Right.
But I hear a lot of the old programs because why are we're evoking all of these deities and we're waiting for so and so to come back and the great ones and this and that and that and that. What if all of that potential is already inside of our DNA? What
Mm.
if we don't have to call on anyone? What if we just need to exalt ourselves to be able to tap into all of that power, all of that energy, because those are all just frequencies. So yeah.
She hit it on the head. Like sometimes to get the information, I feel like I have to be a scavenger because I'll be having to listen to the lecturer, but I'm like, how can I listen to him without him programming me to get a Moorish Science Temple card? How can I get all of his history? Like, because it is valuable, but if I'm not careful, like I'm gonna be in the feds by tomorrow because you're just hearing it so much, and ain't nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong. Like, I
Yeah.
recognize those people as my ancestors too, but I'm just saying, how can I get this information and then it's just really trippy to like hear someone like Bobby be like, "There's no aliens coming back," and I'm like, "Damn, niggas was talking about this in '98, and we still dealing with this in like 2022 or something." I'm like, it's like we really are like in a loop, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like the loop is kind of little by little is coming more and more to an end. The more we notice it, the more we realize, like, this is some BS little by little. I don't really think it's a mass thing, like that people always fantasize that one day everyone's going to take off the blinders and
Not
we're
like
going to
that.
go back into the rainforest and just start building houses and be happy and stuff again. But I don't think it's going to be like that. I think everyone's on their own individual journey. And that's kind of what I wanted to allude to, because when you're hearing all of this, like this fear stuff, like this is coming back, that's coming back, it can throw you off of what you're supposed to be doing. When you're listening to a teacher and they're like telling you this is how you're supposed to be living your life, instead of actually teaching you to give you tools to empower you, it's like you might have a certain mission that involves something that they're telling you not to do, or you might be waiting for something to come when you're supposed to be doing something right now. And I feel like a lot of people struggle with that. Like when COVID was happening, I used to run a juice bar, and it would just be like, all these end time prophecies, all this stuff. And it's like, you trying to figure out what life is going to be like after COVID and all of that. And I wasn't really as spirit led as I am now. So it would be like a lot of panic and fear. Like, damn, like I thought I was just figuring a lot of stuff out. You telling me the world about to be over, or damn, like we're gonna be locked up for the rest of whatever. Like I just got into crypto. Like I just made a little bit of money. Like what's going on? It's like all this fear and panic. And I should have been looking at that time like a vacation. I should have been looking at that time as great. Like I get a break from people, or I'm in the store and people can't see me, stop me and talk. I like there's so many ways to look at that in my favor now that I didn't. You know what I'm saying? And I really want people to pay attention to that the fact that these things can definitely derail your journey. You listen to somebody tell you not to be materialistic or something, but you're meant to own a mansion, or you're meant to, or not to say you got to aim for that stuff because people think black and white, but you're meant to have these nice things because of who we really are. You know what I'm saying? And it's just waiting for you to come into it.
Maybe for you to be on the path that is the highest timeline that you wrote for yourself before you came here. Maybe for you to get on that path, you need to accumulate a certain amount of wealth so that you can free yourself from the matrix and focus on the real work that you came here to do instead of a job. It's not
Right.
always about just trying to flex or keeping up with the Jones or societal values. At this point, you have to look at money as just another tool that can help you to be on the path that you need to be. And if it can buy you back your time, then why are you acting like this has to be in opposition to your spirituality? That's not the case.
Right.
Also, they need to be mindful, and they need to be discerning and heartful when it comes to what teachers they're aligning with, but also to not, how you said, different things are for different people. You know, the truth is the truth, but there are still things that are for you. And you know, when you just take everything word for word that someone else says, that's okay. But you also have to do your own, well, you have to interpret that yourself through your own lens, because that's how that information can be for you. But you also have to become your own source. There is a
Mm,
reason why, if we were to unravel our DNA, it could literally, it could reach to the sun and back. That's how long our DNA is. And there's a reason for that. There's a lot of information in there, a lot of ancestors in there, past versions of yourself that incarnated on earth in there, you know, so we don't always have to seek externally for information. You want to at some point become your own primary source. And the main way to do this is going to be through meditation. There's of course different tools you can use, plant medicines and things like crystals and all that type of stuff that can help you to tap in. But meditation will be number one, and the answers will come, and you'll see what's true and what's not about what other people are putting out there, and you'll be able to kind of navigate this for yourself.
I will say you'll know you're on the right path because there is a portion of being into spirituality where it's like everybody talks about, even master teachers, where you kind of get caught up in that religious mind. So you're just remixing the cross for like a ankh. And
Mm,
some people don't move past that. And because these things are they were originally designed to be empowering, they will help you. Don't get me wrong, but you won't get to your max potential. You know what I'm saying? Like your diet and the yoga and the crystals and all that stuff, like that's not gonna save you, but it will like it will help you. Don't get me wrong, but it won't take you as far as your highest potential may be, because you might be. And that's why you got to raise your internal value, because we don't. And this is why genealogy, all of this stuff ties in. Everything that we talk about, that you hear us talking about, because when you see yourself as a certain thing, then your life is going to reflect that, you know. And because we don't know who we are, there's like these people around us. Like I'll give you a real life example. My next door neighbor, who's my only neighbor who talks to me, he is
mm.
from somewhere in the Middle East. But because my name is Malik and they know about us, that nigga has been trying to like invite me places. He wants to take me out to lunch. He
Right.
wants, huh?
It might be a good idea for you to say yes to some of that.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah, I planned on it. It's just been scheduling.
Yeah.
But he wants to do all these stuff because I can't really, I don't even know his intention, but I just know like the fact that his interaction with me, he sees me probably in even a light that I don't see myself. And that's a scary thing. You know, that's how we get taken advantage of. That's why you'll be on the job putting in all this energy and making someone's company, someone's store, or whatever, be doing big things for you that you could be doing for yourself. You just never saw yourself in that light. You never saw that you could be doing these things. You know, you'll be managing someone's whole business, but not having the confidence to manage your own. You know, and that's all that it really is. Working on those small things to make those bigger changes in your life. But hold on, it's about to cut us off. I'll do the share thing one more time. I only have a few more questions left. I don't know how much time you still have.
Yeah, all good. I'm pretty open, and I can always come back too. So
Okay. This is a great conversation though. I'm loving this. So, huh?
yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Okay. We got a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up. So I'm gonna send the invite one more time.
Okay, cool. I'll look out for it.
Ooh, that would have been bad. What advice would you give to people to get over their fear programming? So, like, for example, even when I first set up my altar, like I was still in my mind, like, there's dead people in there. Like,
Yeah.
but like I was still doing the stuff. Like I'm still pouring the libations, I'm smoking the libations, I'm giving whatever food I have, I'm making my own stuff. but I was still like a little like in my bedroom, like, is there a ghost back there or something? Until, you gotta let go of that little by little. So what advice would you give to someone to get over that fear programming?
Just do it. Don't try, just do. So just start doing whatever you feel inclined to explore, and then you'll see that there's nothing to be afraid of. The only way to really do anything is to do it and experience it. Um, and that really expels all illusions and myths that would have discouraged you from continuing to pursue it. So just get on it. Go ahead and just dive all the way in.
Mm. I think the more you, as the person watching this, the more you practice with this stuff, you'll start to realize how ridiculous it was to be afraid of it, you know. And the reason why you're taught to be afraid of it is because these things can actually empower you.
Exactly.
And you'll no longer need those other people or organizations. That's why meditation is evil, because if you meditate, it's like you tap into your own Siri.
Mm-hmm.
If you use the crystals and stuff, they're like the booster packs. The altar is going to give you like an energy exchange. You know what I'm saying? So they don't want you to be having positive energy exchanges. They don't want you to have your own Siri, because you got to be led by whoever is supposed to be leading you. And when you learn to lead yourself, you don't have to worry about none of that no more. You don't got to even worry about whatever is going on. You know what I'm saying? Like half the time I don't be knowing what's going on, because I'm only worried about, what's right here and what I'm being guided to do. So, um, all right. So if we move on to the next thing, what's your thoughts on psychedelics and other plants medicines?
I love shrooms.
Mm.
I have not personally explored anything beyond that in the psychedelic realm, so I can't really speak to that. But shrooms are a great tool. You know, they're a great help in accessing that DNA that I was talking about, which is your personal Akashic records, which is your personal search engine to anything you could ever want to know. So I like shrooms. I know people have different experiences with them. That has a lot to do with you, your frequency, your perspective on life, what's being brought to you in those moments. So I think that they're of most benefit to people who are already doing the work. It's not going to do the work for you. Scientists are trying to say that shrooms are extraterrestrial, like they're basically aliens from another planet. But really, there's a lot of coding. So as you said earlier, they're not always lying to us, but a lot of times they're just wording it in a way where we'll interpret it in a certain way that they want us to. And so all that it really means about them being extraterrestrial is that they can help you to understand things beyond this physical terrain. So I think that's great plant medicine. It's very good for helping to kind of just decipher through information. It's a lovely reminder, but I say just do it with your own discretion and be ready, but it's not going to do any work for you.
Do you have any cool experiences on shrooms that you would like to share?
I mean, I've had a lot of different experiences, um I've met my shadow, which was that was a good experience for me because I kind of met like a not anthropomorphic version, but like a just a form of my shadow self if they were to be like an entity. And my shadow was like funny and cool. And I was just like, there's truly nothing to be afraid of, even examining yourself on the deepest levels. It's not something that you should be afraid of. But yeah. What
I
about you?
I remember there was just a period of time where like me and my girlfriend were having, I guess it's a ritual looking back on it, but we were just doing shrooms like every Friday. And
Perfect day too.
huh?
Perfect day for a couple to do shrooms.
Right. And she's the one who introduced me because she I had a lot of subconscious religious things to remove from my mind. Like you always hearing that people go crazy and stuff like that.
Mm.
And I had tried um LSD before, and I was like talking to a tree. And this was like 2016. And that was around the beginning of my I hate to use this stuff, but like awakening or whatever. You
Right.
know, that was that was around that time. So I had that experience. I always tell everybody, I was talking to the tree telling me, you know, why we're so out of balance and stuff. And I kind of really made nothing of it. But when we were doing shrooms, I started realizing that the first thing I was like, we're really just here bullshitting, like all this stuff they have us doing. Because just us, like if we were, because all it really does, I feel like you said, it adds to the vibration that either you're trying to be on or that you're on. So when it was like, if you could say, if it was turning on your superpowers a little bit or giving you a feeling of what life was like before colonization and stuff, how tapped in we were, when I was like, damn, we were having conversations and not talking, or like we were doing so much, like time really wasn't real because it felt like we were doing so much, but like nothing, like the time didn't really move on the clock.
It
And it
dissolved.
started to take us outside of this fake reality that they created for us. And I really started realizing like a lot of the petty stuff and stuff that we go back and forth that we're fighting and stuff like that. It's like it's just really people not working on themselves, because like why would we do that when we could be doing this? You know,
Yeah.
that's all I kept thinking about is like I just never wanted to leave that goofy childlike place. You know, I was like in my mind is I have to create a lifestyle for myself where I
Yeah.
can be financially comfortable. Where if I just want to wake up and watch cartoons and eat cereal or something, you know, that's what I want to do, you know, if and take a day off. Like I have to recreate that childlike, safe, fun environment, because when it was bringing me back to that, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then the DNA stuff, and then the connecting with like the universe or whatever stuff, like that stuff started happening too. And it was like, damn, like we are really just so limited in what they're giving to us, you know, and we could be doing some big things like right now, you know, and what I like to say is, you know, if your spirit leads you to it, definitely try it. If you have an interest in it, maybe microdose or something, but you know, not everything is for everyone, but just don't be afraid of it, you know, be open to it, because it definitely is like a medicine too. I've definitely had trips where I was like crying my eyes out and stuff, and that was like a big energy release. But like she said, you know, it's not gonna fix everything for you. That was just something that helped me on that part of the journey to help me get to where I am now, but it wasn't like a fix. And I haven't done it in a really long time, and I'm happy I haven't, because the things that I was working on, it might have been like a cheat, you know, it might have forced me to cry, it might have forced me to do something, but I had to work on those myself. So I look at like the character in the anime who just had to get stronger on his own. You know,
Yeah.
he didn't have a special technique or something. He just had to get stronger on his own. So I definitely think people should be more open to it, even if just a microdosing. It doesn't even just have to be shrooms. There's so many herbs and stuff out there, you know, but treat it like it's a medicine. Don't abuse it. I don't know if you're into smoking weed and stuff, you know, out there in LA. It would be hard to imagine you're not. And I really
Yeah.
think I really think it's a shame that so many people are being programmed with this, like they flipped center for low vibrational. Low vibes is like the new word of saying like sin. It's like
Oh,
they think,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Facts. Yeah.
they think all this stuff is low vibes and stuff, and it's like, nah, it's just like you said, is whatever you do. Weed is gonna slow you down and lower your vibration if you're using it to avoid things. You know, so it's gonna help you. It's like you don't want to do nothing. All right, let's just be lazy. You know what I'm saying? But how can somebody like maybe let's say Snoop Dogg, he's our perfect example, Snoop Dogg. He probably works 22 hours a day with all them jobs he has, and he probably smoking for them 22 hours a day, but he's getting his job done. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, as a random example, that is like, you know, these are just things that are here, and it's either you're gonna have a positive energy exchange with it or negative, but definitely don't just be like, I'm spiritual now, so I don't smoke weed, or I ain't trying them drugs, or don't let anybody convince you that you should or shouldn't be doing it. You know, try it or be open to it, or see where your spirit takes you. You might be somebody who never smoked weed before. You smoke weed, that changes your whole reality. Or you may need to stop smoking weed to change your reality. Everybody's different, but I definitely think people should be more open to it.
Yeah, and it's about, know yourself and then be mindful of how you're doing things. It's not just about doing it, but what form you're doing it in, how can you do things in ways that serve you.
See those key words, serve you. I
And
always talk about that.
that goes back to being a scientist. You have to experiment to know,
Right.
like you said, weed is helpful for some people and it's detrimental to others, so you have to just always be real with yourself and realize what patterns you're seeing play out as you collaborate with these different tools that are here for you to collaborate with. There are also different phases and cycles that you go through where different things are more of value to you than others. There's time for breaks, there's time for indulgence, there's time for going with the flow, there's time for discipline, so just figure out how to make whatever it is that you do serve you.
Oh, she's spitting bars again. What's your thoughts on like how diet and stuff relates to the journey? I'll probably have a couple questions related to this.
Okay, so for me, when I first, after a while of being on my spiritual path, I started to really, I got in my mind about what I was eating a lot. And because I had really been working on my energy centers so much, including my heart, it made me a little bit overly empathetic, So I would find myself trying to eat some sushi, and then I'd be like, "Oh, but the fish," and oh, well, like, how can I eat this? And then, I found myself trying to eat some chicken wings, and I was like, "Oh, but the chicken, like, how could you eat this?" Like, and then I would throw it away, and I was like, you know what? I can't keep throwing away food like this. I just have to like stop eating meat or whatever because like I don't feel like I'm supposed to be eating it, And I kind of was buying into this, well, being less dense and more like light and eating, so eating light and da 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 da. I was plant-based for 3 years. And I stopped being plant-based because I realized that there are a lot of psyops around food and nutrition and around spiritual diets. And a lot of the dogma actually come from psyops and different agendas. And you have to decide, right? If you want to be a martyr or if you want to thrive. And I found that for me, being plant-based was becoming a sacrifice for my health. Mind you, I'm someone who focused on whole foods, the highest quality, organic fruits and vegetables, eating like 10 of them a day, juicing like crazy, smoothies, all that. And I started in time feeling like my body was getting weaker and weaker, and my energy was starting to be depleted. I was having skin problems that I never had to that extent before, but it's like I was getting older, so I'm moving further and further away from adolescence, a time period where your skin should be getting better, not getting way, way worse than it was when you were a teenager. And so, I'm all about just being real with myself and seeing the signs and going from there. So I was like, this is not right. I shouldn't be like this, and developing food more and more food sensitivities. And so I was like, I have to be doing something wrong. Like, even though I've encouraged people to do this and I thought this is the way, I have to go back to the drawing board. And so I really saw the bigger picture, and I realized how some of these love and light spiritualists try to supersede the idea of duality, which is something that is just real in this existence. And so I started, I completely changed my diet, like completely. I started eating a lot more meat. Well, I wasn't eating any meat at the time. And, I did make sure I'm doing organic, I'm doing, grass fed, I'm doing all this stuff, paying a lot more money than the average person to try to make sure I'm having the best meat and the best seafood and, things like that. But anyway, so after I did this, every problem that I was feeling before from becoming plant-based completely went away. And I also saw my physique look just way more on point than it ever had in my life. I watched, I cured all my food allergies that I had for years and years and years. I had more energy than I knew what to do with, but yeah, so it's a very controversial topic, I know that a good majority of us are still in the mindset that plant-based will save us, but there's many reasons why that's probably not going to be optimal long-term for hardly anyone. Um, I don't want to break all of that down because it would take like a whole nother hour, 2 hours, because it's a lot. I've done a lot of research and a lot of experimentation. But just be discerning with everything. Follow your intuition and do what feels right to you and notice the signs. So
Yeah, I have a similar story with, I won't say being plant-based was no, it was definitely harming my health. I gotta be realistic. Because at one point I was like 160, 263 pounds because one, if you're not eating all those like mock meats and stuff, it just becomes to a point where it's like, what am I going to eat? You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And
Have to eat such a high volume of fruits and vegetables. And the body's not actually made for that because we think about how our ancestors, what they would have access to, right? Earlier we were talking about eating to live instead of just eating 3 times a day for entertainment. Our ancestors, especially if we're talking about like this hemisphere, they would go out, hunt animals, go get a big, huge bison or something like that. And then everybody would feed off of that. And they maybe would be lucky to come across a bush of berries or to come across, it used to be tropical here. So I don't know all the different types of fruits that we had in this region back then, but they would be lucky to come across some fruit. So the diet was really more meat and fruit. And then vegetables were more rarely consumed because they're more likely to contain toxins. Out of all the things that we eat that are plants, that is like 1% of all the plants in the world because those are the ones that are not poisonous. The vast majority of plants are poisonous to the human body, but vegetables still are to a certain degree because they have these crystals in them that can build up in our joints, in our body, in our mind, that end up causing, different, back problems, knee problems, arthritis, mental health issues, a lot of different things, and as well as anti-nutrients because they have something called defense chemicals. Animals' defense system is running away. It's having fangs, it's having claws. But a plant is rooted in the ground. So the only way for it to let us know that I don't want you eating me is if I release some type of toxin. But humans haven't been noticing that these toxins accumulate in time. There's a very small amount of doctors who are talking about this right now and who are putting this information out and fixing their clients' health because it's not normal for people to get to a certain age and everyone has diabetes or high blood pressure or some type of issue. No, that's not normal. This is an accumulation of a lot of different things that we've been doing because since the advent of modern agriculture, the human brain has uh, has started to shrink. Before that, our brain, we were evolving. Our brain was getting bigger and bigger. You know what our brain is made out of? It's not made out of carbs. Our brain is made out of fats, you know.
Mm.
So, but people will be surprised because like I'm very slim and everything, but like it's not because I don't eat animals. Like it's because I don't eat hardly any carbs. The carbs that I eat are usually fruit. And if I'm going to eat a vegetable, it's going to be a certain type of vegetable and it's going to be in season. So that's the other thing. Our ancestors were not able to have access to fruits and vegetables from all around the world year round. That would never happen. So that's again something that throws off our circadian rhythm and us being in sync with nature. We do our own thing. We think we're so smart because we can have access to so much, but at the same time, that can contribute to our detriment, you know, because a lot of things are based on capitalism, on what can be sold to us, what can be manufactured, or, you know, things like that. And so we have to be careful. Most of the time when our ancestors would come across, um, you know, some leafy greens or some vegetables, if they did that, they knew they were taking a risk that they could die from trying that plant, because that's how they had to figure out what plants were consumable and what weren't, from trial and error. So obviously they wouldn't go out of their way to eat that unless it was because they didn't have some meat or some fruit available. So in a
And then
nutshell.
that's one of the first times I'm hearing it broke down like that. That might be culture shock to somebody because all you hearing is eat your fruits and vegetables and
I
you're gonna
know
be
it.
healthy.
I know it. And it's so taboo. And that's a subject that, you know, I just feel like people could really get riled up about and totally just kind of miss trying to understand it. But it's like you have to, if you're really doing the work, then you can step back from your ego for a second and hear an alternative perspective, because usually what most people are flocking to is not what's right. It's what we're being programmed to follow, you know.
Keep talking that talk again, you know.
Mhm.
I just started eating fish again a few months ago, and I am not against eating chicken. Like I always say, one day to throw my ego off, I'm just gonna go get some jerk chicken, and it's gonna confuse the whole reality and everything I got going on. It's gonna confuse it because it's gonna be like, what the hell? He said he never eat chicken again,
Right.
and I that day is just coming up. And when people ask me now, because you know they know me as a juice bar person helping people with their diets and all of that, and I had to totally shift from that because even though and these are the things that a lot of people don't realize, like the sacrifices and stuff you have to make and how you get tested and stuff like that. I had to shift from that, even though it was making me money,
Yeah.
even though that was my livelihood. And I was like, didn't know where it was going to go from there because it no longer resonated with me. My thing became, how can I help people empower themselves? How can I help people heal their minds? Because I realized there's only like one or two people talking about that, and there's 10 million niggas going to the fifth dimension. So I started focusing on that, and it's still a work in progress, you know. But as far as the diet, I don't have I look at diet like how the actual definition, the term is like, you know, the animals are just kind of eating what they need. But at the same time, I'm kind of like look at it in a scientist type of way. Like I eat certain things just because my ancestors ate them. Like there's certain crackers that Jamaican people eat with milk tea. Even though on the back of the bag, it might have some crazy ingredients, I am not looking at the back of the bag. For most things, I'm going to be looking at the nutritional facts. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not looking at the back of the bag because this interaction I'm having with the food is going beyond, you know, whatever it was made with. Now it's more of like a spiritual thing while I'm eating it too. I'm eating it for that nostalgia. I'm eating it to connect with them, you know. So my diet is basically, it has become kind of whatever I kind of want, you know. When I added fish and stuff again, I was like relieved, you know, because I wasn't eating those mock meats. I started with the whole vegan thing with all the mock meats, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. I might as well just start eating chicken. And then I went back to eating chicken and stuff, and I just kind of I started being grossed out by it. It wasn't even the program. I just started being grossed out by it by a little bit. So maybe actually I gotta be careful. Maybe it was the program.
It's hard to know because
Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing. Oh, it's just my heart is so big, I can't eat these animals. But I think if I think about everything that I was consuming at the time beyond food, but like listening to, watching, like even today, right now, I just know better, so I ignore the propaganda. But there's constant propaganda about not eating meat, about
right,
eating. And mind you, for me, it's very easy for me to not eat meat. I grew up with a mom who was vegetarian for 9 years. Like,
right.
it's not foreign to me, and it's not hard for me to give up meat. If anything, I have to train myself. I feel like it's a sacrifice that I'm eating meat to be at my best, to
Mm.
be honest.
Yeah, I was a kid and they used to force me to eat meat. I only wanted the vegetables and the gravy and the rice.
Wow.
And I even looked at that like, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this. But once I started eating fish, I'm telling you, that was a sigh of relief. I definitely did start feeling better. It made it easier to cook. And I just took all these things, like I just started flipping it. And they'd be like, shrimp is like the roach of the sea. And I just started saying things like, a roach might be a delicacy in some countries. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, that's facts. People don't really understand, like, you know, our perspective, our scope is so narrow and
right,
it's so egotistical. And it's like, how did these norms even become norms? Like, because somebody told you that that's what humans do. So now that's what you do. We
right.
don't even question these things and try to figure it out for ourselves.
Right, because there's definitely a reason why all down by like Louisiana and those areas by the water, and even in like the Caribbean stuff too, like that crawfish, that fishing culture, and that crab boils. Like there's a reason why we're spending $100 on crab boils every week. Like
Yeah. It's
it's
it's very ancestral. It's like how you
right,
said with the crackers and stuff, it's in the tea, it's a ritual, right? So I'll indulge in some soul food or whatever as a ritual. And like I said, I'll program my food with that intention beforehand. And but yeah, we're very much seafaring people, always have been. We've been traveling around the whole world for thousands of years. So seafood is something very, very familiar to us, and people don't know how deep that pool is today.
right. But yeah, definitely whoever's watching this, let your this will be probably one of the best ways to tap into your spirit. Let that start guiding you on what you're supposed to be eating. And don't be afraid of this stuff. I don't eat regular cheese. I'll still probably make a cashew cheese or plant-based cheese. That's what kind of makes my diet so unique. But that's more just for like health things. Like my body just doesn't process that as well as the average person might. You know what I'm saying? And but I'm still wanting that Big Mac and cheese. I just might have to work a little harder to get it. I still want them candy yams. I just don't want them with like, the white domino sugar or whatever. But I still want that, I still want to eat that kind of stuff because it just become ritualistic, just become a part of whatever. And I don't even know if this was ever really slave food or nothing like that. I can no longer follow that narrative. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because when you look back on it, like they'll say that we started eating pork from slavery, but then you'll read that the Tainos of like the Caribbean, their indigenous food was wild hog. So do Haitians
Exactly.
and Puerto Ricans, Dominicans like pork because they were slaves, or are they switched the hog out with the pig? Like which story is it? You know what I'm saying? Not that I'm endorsing either one, but it's just
But
like
a wild hog fed by a farmer who actually knows what they're doing and cares is a completely different product
right,
than 99% of bacon that you can get in the grocery store. But the thing is, what I would encourage people, if you want to explore eating meat, do focus on the quality, because that is a real thing. And that's true for the fruits and vegetables too. They be putting wax on them. There,
mm-hmm.
a lot of them are they're just so far away from the original product. Many of these fruits and vegetables that you eat today did not exist 50 or 100 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to think about that. You're in an experiment right now, and just decide what you want to do with that.
Right. Um, what? damn, are we running to the 10-minute mark again? I'm telling y'all, with this time ain't being real stuff, because it's like,
I can definitely come back to another time. I would be down for it because yeah.
I only have 3 questions left, and I'm like, damn, I feel like they speeding up the time on us or something.
I know,
Um,
right? It doesn't feel like it's been that long.
because it's saying it got 8 minutes left. I'm just enjoying this so much. I don't know. Do you want to stop here, or do you want to like keep going and then do one more invite? It's up to you, because I don't want to be
No,
taking up your whole day.
I was gonna say it's up to you.
Because we could, because I just have 3
Y'all
left,
have
and
a
then
good day.
any closing comments, that was basically it. But so we could start on this one, and then we have about 8 minutes. But what advice would you give to someone trying to find their purpose?
That's a good question. I would say to commit to their spiritual path because it'll unveil everything that they need to know about themselves and what their mission is here on earth.
Hmm. How did you? I don't know if I had asked you what you do in your day to day, but how did you like? What did you implement, or how did you start to notice like this is what I'm supposed to be doing?
Um, for me, just a lot of confirmations, a lot of synchronicities, a lot of like when it comes to my spiritual work, a lot of people just letting me know that my words provided a lot of value to them, and were actually able to help them expand their conscious awareness. That told me that, wow, I not only do I love to do this, and because I do it for myself first, so I had to do all this for myself before I can be an example of how to do it. And I didn't know when I was doing it for myself that the idea would be for me to become an example. Um, but that's just kind of how things unraveled. And everything is interactive and everything is collaborative. So when you're authentic in the world about what you do, the world will respond back and let you know if that is a path that is truly resonating with your soul or not, because of the different opportunities, different people, um, the exchanges that come about through that.
Hmm.
And it was the only thing that really like could me doing this work was the only thing, and first and foremost just on self, that was truly gratifying for me sustainably, like
Hmm.
truly fulfilling and satisfying.
I definitely can relate to that. And I've even had to be shifted again by still, just talking about it, still following that journey, because I thought I was just gonna be helping people with their diets and stuff. And my thing wasn't, I wasn't money first, but I'm just like kind of, I realize I'm just kind of doing things to make money. You know, I'm just, okay, well, I know I can buy some shea butter. Okay, well, I know I can make these essential oils and stuff. And don't, if that's what you're doing, don't take what I'm saying as that's not supposed to be on your path. You're not supposed to be
Right,
doing that type
right,
of stuff. But I'm talking about how I was finding my own path, just to, for those black and white people. But
right.
that I realized it was like, that wasn't fulfilling for me. I would sell somebody some sea moss or something, and they were kind of just buying it because they're like, all right, black person, let's support each other, you know. And even if they were buying it for medicinal benefits, it just didn't like, it wasn't fulfilling. And the thing is because I wasn't doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And what I realized is one of the things I used to fight, I talk about it, was that people always tell me their problems. And sometimes it can make me uncomfortable because a friend, even when it's a friend, it's like telling you about some dark thing from third grade, and it'll be random. And you're just like, what the fuck? Like, what do I say now?
Yeah, yeah. That makes me want to ask about your astrology, which reminds me, that's another tool on your path that can really it can lay out your path for you, or it can confirm confirm it for you when you're already on your path. Like everything about my astrology and my numerology says I'm supposed to be a spiritual teacher, you know?
Right.
So,
Yeah, mine's the same. Like life path 2 is like therapist or like life coach. And that's kind of how I see myself, as like a Tony Robbins and like a spiritual, I don't even like to, but like it's like, the spiritual teacher of being like Tony Robbins, going around helping people to empower themselves, as well as that one-on-one type of sessions. My big three is like Virgo, Scorpio.
oh, there you go. I have those in my top three too.
What's your layout? You're a Virgo, like
Tropical Scorpio Sun, Virgo Moon, Cap Rising, and then I have a Sagittarius stellium, and I have my Sag Mars in the ninth house, which the ninth house is about wisdom and teaching spirituality, and Sagittarius is also about wisdom and teaching spirituality. And sidereal, I'm a Libra Sun, Leo Moon, Sagittarius rising. And so the tropical is like the earthly version if you were to just do everything kind of from your ego. And the sidereal part is what you have to do to exalt those human aspects of yourself. So in my Leo sun shows how to save my Scorpio sun. I said Leo, I meant Libra. How to balance out the extremities of that Scorpio sun. The Leo moon teaches you how to save yourself from the perfectionism of Virgo and what that is actually supposed to be, how you're actually supposed to be a prototype and an example. You're supposed to do the work on yourself and not try to work on everybody else in the world. But anyway, all that, but that's
no.
something you can look at though.
That's a good mini breakdown, because anybody who's looking into their chart, because I was just listening, like, I'm still studying astrology, so the terms and stuff I'm still working on, but like and even that can be an ego thing, because you could be like, man, I'm a man, I'm from the hood, like, should I really be doing this girly stuff or whatever? It's like, these are things you got to work on, because when I was first getting into tarot, I never thought I'd be no tarot reader. You rarely even see a male one, let alone like one that's not like gay or something. So
I
when
love it when it's you though. I'm always
so
like, oh, let me tap in.
when I gave my friend, like, my spirit just told me one day, like, you need to reach out to these two people and ask them to give, if you can give them a reading. And I was just like, what? And I didn't charge them no money or nothing. And I did. And it was messages that they needed to hear. And the fact, like, I'm still learning, but the way I was like breaking down the cards and shit, I'm like, this must be some shit I was doing in a past life or something, because it was just coming so natural. And I was just like, yo, what the fuck? And it was like a little taste of like, yeah, like, this is what you're really supposed to be doing. Like, all that diet stuff and stuff is cool, but this is what you're really supposed to be doing. And I was really passionate about it, you know what I'm saying? And now I started to realize, like, oh, this is why people always tell me their problems. Oh, this is why, everything is starting making more sense. And it's like, I just kept going harder and harder with making like my videos and stuff. But hold on, it's about to cut off. I'll send you the link again.
All right, cool.
All right. Thank you for being patient with this. So yeah, when I was I think I was talking about doing the tarot stuff. So when I started doing it and stuff, it was like, now I do my daily draws as a part of my ritual. I don't do it every single day. You might be getting too busy or just have things you do, or maybe I just don't feel like doing it that day or think it's necessary. But um, if you would have told me 2 years ago that I would be doing that, even though I was already like into spiritual sciences, I wouldn't believe you. You know what I'm saying? And those are other parts of like releasing the ego that people don't realize. We get conditioned to thinking of ego and just Kanye. Like, oh, as long as I don't got like no Louis bag and flexing on people, I don't got no ego. And that is farthest from the truth, So that's actually part of tying into my next question, the thoughts on the misconception of ego death and how you got to kill your ego, and that's supposed to be the big spiritual goal.
Yeah. I would say as a human, you definitely don't want to kill your ego. But you do want to refine it, and you want to make sure it's not steering the ship. So you want to use your ego for what it's needed for. It's a form of psychic protection, but it's the average human abuses it, and they use it in a way that ends up misaligning them with the path of their soul in their heart. And so it's important to refine the ego and to keep it in check and to recognize when it's coming up and those moments when it's coming up and it doesn't serve you.
Mm.
So be real with yourself, and you're so real, so right that it's not about always what you think ego is. Ego comes through in many, 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 many ways. And one of the main ways that has really shown me that I've learned how to work with my ego is that it's a lot harder for me to get embarrassed than it once was,
Mm.
which takes a lot of struggle out of the human experience, because you'd be surprised how many things we don't do because we're afraid of being embarrassed, or how many things, how harshly we judge ourselves, or something like that because of how we look in a certain situation. But it's good to not take yourself too seriously. You want to have your heart as light as a feather, right? If your heart were in those scales and it was being weighed out against that feather, how heavy would your heart be? These are the things that are connected to releasing the hold of ego, not allowing ego to control your life. You should be able to, if something happens to you and it's embarrassing, or even if it's heartbreak, you should be able to, at some point, you should be able to laugh at it. Because this is a sign of the expansion of consciousness, and being able to look at things from so many different perspectives, and it not always being about how you look in a situation, but being about the moment and how you feel right now.
Mm. I think that's definitely well put. Everything she's saying is things that I still work on and have to work on. For me to make these videos, what I'm saying, there's a lot of made up stuff that'll be in your mind, from your childhood experiences, things you've been told, things you've been made to believe about yourself. So even just making these videos and stuff, when I first got started, I'd be like, who am I to be teaching? Like, I wasn't no smart kid in school and nothing like that. Who am I to be doing this? Like, when you're doing it for a while and you haven't seen the traction, or you haven't reaped what you sow, you might start to think that you're wasting your time or something. And these are all like the ego. You can't see the path or what is being laid out for you, or you might not think something is for you, or you like, and key word here is think, what I'm saying? You just over analyzing, you using too much thought and stuff, and using your thoughts against you. And that's kind of keeping you stagnant. So like if you are listening, please pay attention to these things and these jewels that are being dropped. So the last thing I kind of have is advice to new people just learning on their journey, getting into spirituality. Like, what would you tell them to focus on? What would you tell them this is really about, so they don't have or have to deal with these misconceptions and stuff? Like, just what general advice would you give?
I would say to focus on you, like you have blinders on. Don't be distracted, because there are so many distractions and they come in so many forms. And a lot of times, all the time, you're going to be your biggest obstacle in overcoming these distractions and in pursuing what it is say you want to pursue. To be committed, it's just like if you're in a relationship, right? If you've already decided that you've committed to someone, you can't talk shit about them every time you guys have some type of disagreement to your friends, to your family, right? Because that's going to start to, whatever they relay back to you, it's going to start to get into your subconscious, and you're going to start to sabotage the relationship. So if you're on a spiritual path, you don't have to worry about getting approval from family or from friends about what you believe in and what you're deciding to stand for. You don't have to have company in what you're doing. And initially, most people won't, because the world is still stuck in a fourth dimensional paradigm, where, you know, they're psychologically indoctrinated into the things that they believe. So once you decide to break free from that, you no longer fit in with the masses. You're not an average person anymore. You're doing exceptional things because you're doing things that other people aren't doing. That's, you know, what an exception is. So you have to know that initially you could feel a little bit more isolated, and you could feel misunderstood, and that's part of the path. Okay, that's going to make you receive the people that you do resonate with, and that will become a part of your tribe. It will make you appreciate them all the more, and you will have gained so much wisdom from that time that you've spent focused on cultivating uh, that space within yourself. And so make sure that you're creating a safe space for yourself on this journey, a space where you're doing the shadow work and the inner child healing and all of that, but you're not judging the decisions that you made before you started to consciously do the work. This is going to help you to be able to be present and just see things for what they are, so that you can act accordingly and do what you need to do to rectify them and to transcend into your next level. Don't be coerced by what you see on TV or in the news. Don't be discouraged by any collective realities, because you're focused on creating and experiencing your own reality now. Keep working on new ways to look at everything. Just keep allowing your mental space to expand and expand and expand until you're able to see things that once were only trauma as things that now you can see how you can use that experience to serve you, until you can see how you can transmute your pain into pleasure. Just keep going and you'll make it happen.
I think that's very well said. I definitely thoroughly enjoyed this whole entire conversation. You know what I'm saying? I think that this would be very helpful. This has inspired me, just talking and hearing and having the back and forth, you know, and I think that's the thing, you know, if it's not inspiring you, if they're not pushing you to do something, if they're not like, when you're as far as talking about, as far as listening to someone, you know, as because that's all you can really do. You can't be led by them. You can only really be maybe even guided, and really you want to be guided by yourself, because after a while you'll be listening to a teacher or something, and what they're saying may not resonate with where you are on your journey. And you might be watching my YouTube videos one day, and one day be like, okay, I've had enough of this. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just how it goes. You know, you jump around and you just take things that are going to help you where you are currently and help you to where you want to get to be. So I definitely enjoyed every single part of this conversation. I appreciate you taking the time out. You know, if there's I definitely would like to collab or do something again. Not sure what that is yet, but you know, it's rare that men and women can have conversations that are online, that is not like a $200 date or something that is
something and, so dumb.
Right. And it's very rare to have like these talks that are not in a religious manner. You know, we're not telling anybody, oh no, you better not do shrooms, or
right.
You better do this because the fifth dimension is coming, or, you know, a lot of times I see that stuff online. I'm like, man, I wonder, it could be a lot of people who are getting into this could be so turned off, because it's like, damn, y'all twice as strict as the religious people. And then on top of that, it's like, just be scared of everything. And I definitely appreciate having this conversation. So I don't know if there's anything you would like to say, if you want to advertise your business, everything, anything like that, you know.
Absolutely. Well, I really enjoyed the conversation, the energy exchange. I'm grateful, and I hope that people can definitely take something from this. But um, either way, it was, it was fun. And I mean, y'all can find me on social media at Gette 369. I also finally got consistent on YouTube. So y'all can find me on there as well. And yeah.
All right, that's great. We'll definitely talk more in the future about collabing on something because I
Yeah, yeah.
enjoyed this conversation a lot. So
I'm
if
with
I don't know if it will like make up a lecture or something, you know, I really feel like it's important that the younger people who kind of think like this, you know, I don't think there needs to be a new Bobby or a new, you know, Brother Phil or whatever, because one, they kind of come from, even though, don't get me, pay attention to what I'm saying, like they're master teachers, they know their stuff, they got books and all of that, but they come from, some of them come from a time where it's hard for them to let go of certain things. It's hard for them to let go of certain mindsets. So even though they're bringing the truth, they're bringing this certain mindset with them. And when we talk about history and stuff like that, because we're trying to put our history in the right perspective, we're only following, we're still discussing 1492 and beyond, but like, what was life like 50,000 years ago? You know what I'm saying? We don't know what we was doing unless you
Well, I
do
can
like,
talk about some of that. You can let me know, like, if you any topic that you want to like deep dive into, like we can do that. Just let me know, and I can get that to you because I've been, yeah,
right.
talk
So I
about
think
anything under the sun.
right. So I think that's what it is to like to start talking about these topics on a higher level, you know, and that was one of the things that shrooms made me do too, because we get so programmed that like hip hop is either low vibes, it's either sinning, or not even just hip hop, but like certain things like that is low vibes, it's sinning, it's a distraction, it's whatever. But when I was on shrooms, I started like thinking of myself as an artist, and I started listening to like the artist music, and I'm like, wow, like I started paying more attention to the cover art. I started paying more attention to like all little things. So I'm like, regardless of how this is being used, you know what I'm saying? It might be used as a tool against people. Some people might be transmuting the energy. Like, for example, somebody might use a song that's like that would be like a strip club song and they spin class or something to help people be more energized. And
Yeah.
somebody might use that in another way, you know, it's just all about how you use the energy. But I stopped thinking like so fearful, like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this, or I shouldn't be partaking in that, or shouldn't be listening to this or doing that, because I just started to see it for what it was. You know, it's just like I'm either going to be using it for this or going to be using it for that, but I know I'm not going to let it use me. I kind of started looking at it like that. And I think it's important for us to start talking about this kind of stuff and kind of modernizing the information, you know,
It
making it
is
from like a
important.
modern view.
I think that's so important, and that's going to be a large part of just us making this change. And getting more people to, not getting more people, but just setting the example, and then other people are going to see that, and then they
Right.
are going to gravitate toward it because these are paths that we're meant to walk. But yeah, as someone who used to really be like a hip hop head as a kid, like growing up and everything, um I've had those moments too, and I've had to decide it's about how I consume something. And there are moments where I don't want to listen to people that talk and their lyrics and their demented thoughts and things like that. And then
Right.
I'll listen to just instrumentals. And there's sometimes where I really want that trap beat, and I want to dance and
Right.
I want to feel that. I want to feel that bass, like, and so genuinely do what you feel moment to moment. That is, I can't stress the importance of that. That is truly being in the divine flow. There's some gift to offer you in every moment that you're fully present, but you do have to just be fully present.
Right. I think that's definitely well put. And yeah, we'll definitely keep in contact. Um, I'll let you know once I post this. I can give you a copy of the recordings if you want to use it for any content for yourself too. Just let me know. I can like put it in a Google Drive folder and share it with you.
Okay, cool.
Um,
Yeah, I'll do that.
I definitely, like I said, I appreciate this conversation again. I if anything, I'll let you come up with something for next time. You can just be like,
Well,
what you want to do.
I want to make sure it's something that you want me to talk about and that it's relevant to your channel and everything, and something that you're interested in, something that you're curious about, and you know.
I'm open to one. I'm open to learning myself. Like I love that master student kind of role, and then two is like anything that can kind of empower people. So even if we just have like I've been wanting to do metaphysical conversations about like our music, because the older generation, again, they come from a time where they're just really not going to be able to relate to it. So it's like I would want to talk about that in a way where people can either connect it to like, okay, this is how they're going to get a 400 level type class of astrology, but it's going to be broken down in a way that they could understand, or these high level so-called spiritual concepts will be broken down in a way they can understand, because we're talking about their favorite rapper, or we're talking about dancing, or we're talking about a certain TV show or something. So, or it could just be going back and forth on history or something like that, whatever it might be. But
Something that you said just gave me an idea, though, maybe something we could do, highlighting occult aspects of the culture, um, why you see Kanye doing what he's doing, and how this has something to do with alignment or misalignment and planets, and how we are connected to the cosmos, and people. It's not that people aren't controlling their lives, but it's that, how does your life look when you're letting the ego aspect steer the ship versus the soul aspect? And, but always focus on things that can actually help people to look at themselves and improve their own lives and experiences.
right, yeah, that would be a cool conversation, because what you were saying with that, like when people always be like, certain music and stuff that they put out there, like let's say WAP, and people think, or we're programmed to think that it's these group of evil men in a room saying that we got to make this song. And I'm not saying they don't do that, but I think a lot of times they recognize the cycles. Like if we're coming out of a cycle where women were just so shut down sexually, but as a people we were, but women especially, then I can only imagine that the energy now is going to be like trying to overcompensate. So of course I could make a marketing plan around that if I know that that energy is coming. I don't think people realize how strategic it is, like, and how much these people aren't really like geniuses. They just recognize the cycles. They just know what's coming. They know what was going on. So, all right, if they were shut down sexually, that means they're probably going into a cycle of being overly sexual or sexually free. You know what I'm saying? So let's work around that, and let's roll with the wave that's already going to be out there spiritually. We probably don't naturally think of something like that. We just be like, oh, Illuminati. Oh, they're trying to do something evil. Oh, they're doing blah 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 blah. And it's like, I think if people start recognizing that, they could take that information, start applying it to their own life. Be like, oh, okay, if that's how the cycles work, well, shit. If I was down bad for 6 months, that means it's about to get lit. If I've been putting that work in, I think that's how it would be like perfect if the conversation was like something that led to that, that was also informational. But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, you did that.
but yeah, I've definitely enjoyed this. Well, I'll let you know once I've like uploaded it to the folder or whatever. And whenever I upload it to YouTube, I'll probably post a couple clips before I post the full video. But thank you so much for taking the time out again.
Yeah, definitely. I had a great time. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.